A few years ago, I got to discover my own higher self, and this completely changed my life. So today I want to explore this concept with you. So we'll look at what is the higher self? How can we tap into this inner wisdom, this superhero of ours, and what happens in our life when we connect with our higher self? So follow me on this journey into the exploration of the higher self. And by the end of this video, you'll know how to connect and how to recognize the voice of your own heart, your own superhero. Hi, I'm Esther, quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, and my mission is to help people take their power back and become the powerful creators that we're all meant to be. In Western society, which is very mind-based, logic-based, we act mainly from our ego's point of view. And we often dismiss this beautiful part of ourselves, which is our higher self. And sometimes we don't even know it exists. We don't know how to connect to it, and we don't know how to learn from it and to act from it. But as humanity is waking up and realizing the programming that we've been put through society, and as we're shedding and questioning all these old paradigms and these old energies, we are realizing that there is much more to human consciousness than what we thought there was. And we are realizing who we truly are, and we are realizing that there might be a more elevated version of ourselves. And nowadays, a lot of people are getting to meet their higher self for that reason. So who is the higher self? Well, Alan Watts has a pretty good definition of it. He says, you have a lower self, which you can call your ego. That's that little scandalous fellow that's always out for me. Behind the ego, there's the inner self, the inward light, the real self, the spirit, which is substantially identical with God. So we all have a lower self and a higher self. The lower self is referred to as the ego, and it is associated with the left side of the brain, which deals with survival, logic, analysis, and it mainly thinks about me from a very selfish point of view. Whereas the higher self is the biggest part of our consciousness. It sees life more from the oneness of all creation. And whilst our ego is always looking outside for validation, for satisfaction, the higher self is the better part of ourselves, if you like. It is our inner wisdom, our intuition. And by looking inside and finding the higher self, we go on this everlasting journey of self-love, of compassion, of service to ourselves and to others. The higher self is the one that will always guide us to the right places. When we find the higher self, we find peace within. We are no longer looking outside for validation, for satisfaction. We are no longer the victims of our environment, and we become the creators of our environment, the creators of our life. The higher self allows us to take our power back. The higher self is the highest part of our consciousness. It is eternal, it is indestructible, it is the part that we carry with us from lifetime to lifetime. And so in this way, the higher self has experienced life from many angles, in many shapes and forms, and it has a much broader perspective about life than our ego has, and therefore it has much more wisdom. And in this sense, our higher self is our greatest teacher. It is our own superhero. The higher self can not only guide us through life, but it can also heal us. And we all have a higher self. And the more we listen to it, the more we can become it, and the less we will let our ego direct our life. And when we are more in touch with our higher self, we are more in alignment. And this is when life starts to become easier. The stars align in a way. When we are more in touch with the higher self, we realize that everything is connected, and the higher self as a way to show us the essence of life, and it has a way to show us how we are connected to that very essence. The higher self helps us elevate ourselves. It helps us live life with a better knowing and a better understanding of who we truly are. It helps us understand the world within us and the world around us. So how do we tap into this inner wisdom? How do we tap into and use this superhero of ours? Well, the best way to find your higher self is to be quiet, to be alone. It's good to quiet the mind, and often we can find the higher self when we're in meditation or doing yoga or in nature, appreciating a landscape or hugging a tree or connecting with what is around us. And of course, in a QHHT session, this is the perfect place to find your higher self, because during the hypnosis, we are in contact with the higher self for almost 2 hours. So that's plenty of time to recognize this voice of the heart and really make friends with it. And a very simple method to get in touch with our higher self is to place our hands on our heart and directing our attention to our heart center and slowing down our breathing and quieting our mind. And in this way, we can already sense the presence of the higher self within us. And at first, it's much easier to connect with the higher self when we are on our own in a quiet place or in nature. But as time goes and as this connection grows stronger, then we're able to connect with the higher self even in a busy place, like at work or in a city. And the goal is not to become a hermit so we can be totally in touch with our higher self. The goal is to be able to be in touch even in a busy environment, so we can rise above the environment and be of help, be of service where it is most needed in the confusion of society. It's a bit like exercising a muscle, and as we exercise it, it becomes stronger and stronger. And in this way, the connection with the higher self works exactly the same. It's about connecting more and more. It takes a little bit of work at first, and then it becomes easier and easier. So what happens when we are more in touch with our higher selves, and how can this help us in our life today? Well, the higher self is all about oneness and selflessness. So it helps us open our minds and it helps us open our hearts. And so one of the common side effects of really being in touch with your higher self is that you start feeling more love, more compassion, more kindness for yourself and for others. You start realizing that you are not just this poor little me, but you start realizing that you have great power, that you are a creative being, a being of choice, and that you can choose what your life needs to be like. And in this way, the higher self helps us feel more joy, more inspiration for life. It helps us be kinder to ourselves and to our environment. It helps us feel more elevated emotions like joy, compassion, gratitude, abundance. And this in turn raises our vibration and helps us have a better life. There's also a few signs that you're getting more in touch with your higher self. For example, there will be more synchronicities in your life, or you'll learn to recognize them more. For example, you think about somebody and suddenly they call you. Or you think, oh, well, I should really do this today. And then you find yourself in the right place at the right moment. This seems slightly magical, but this is how the higher self works, because it guides us to be in the right place at the right moment. There's also other signs, like you start seeing repeating numbers on the clock or on number plates or on street numbers, or you start hearing songs on the radio that give you a special message that you needed to hear today, or you start seeing adverts or billboards and these give you the messages that you were meant to hear today, or the answers that you were looking for. And so we realize that the universe is communicating with us all the time. And in this way, this makes us feel really supported, because we realize that we're actually never alone, that there's always someone there for us, and there's always someone there to listen to us, and that we can find answers without having to look too far. We can let the answers come to us. Another sign that you might be more in touch with your higher self is that you start getting more vivid dreams and your intuition becomes stronger, because the higher self speaks to us in images and symbols. So it speaks to us in our dreams, and in this way, when we are more open to the meaning of our dreams, we can see how the higher self is trying to guide us and help us on our journey. Another sign is that we no longer feel fear, because we know that we are never alone, and we know that we are supported. And so limiting beliefs become expanding beliefs, and we start realizing that life is full of potentials, and that we can create anything, that nothing is really impossible. We realize that we have so much power. We realize that we are not only doing this for ourselves, but also for others. We have different motivations in life and better intentions towards our environment, towards the people in our environment as well. So connecting and being in touch with your higher self is really a way to make life more fun, more creative, and more inspiring. Suddenly life becomes more like a playground, and we realize that we are the creators of our own reality, and that we have the power to do this, and that it's not actually as difficult as we thought it might have been. And we realize and we see our life manifest suddenly in the way that we want, and it all becomes a little bit magical. It all becomes a bit easier than what it was before. So connecting with our higher self is really a relationship worth developing, because this superhero of ours is here to help us and to help us succeed in whatever we want to manifest. It allows us to find self-love, to find inner peace, acceptance, and a new love for life, a new inspiration for life. It allows us to understand that we don't need to be the victims of our society, but that we can let these energies serve us instead. It allows us to be better persons for ourselves and for the world around us. And if we let our higher self guide us, we will surely create the best life for ourselves. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please let me know in the comments how you connect with your higher self, and what are the kind of messages that you get from the universe showing you that you're on the right path. And please share this video with your friends if you think it might help them. And don't forget to subscribe so I can create more awesome content for you. And until next time, stay in love, share the light.